And here we are. We are live on the Nights of Transformation. But today, we don't have an ordinary guest. We have an extraordinary guest. Okay. Well, you may know, okay, the influencer, the mover and shaker, the CEO of like 12 companies, and, the trainer and coach to ministers and business people around the entire Middle East plus the world. Okay, Khalid Al Kaoud. Did I say that? Khalid Al Kaoud. Is that right?
You said it right, Arthur. Good morning, Arthur.
Oh, good
Was
morning, Khalid. How are you?
I'm really good, really good. I'm very happy to see you once again.
Well,
As you
it's always a pleasure, looking at your smile and your energy and everything. Is like, wow, it's pretty awesome. Okay, so today it's not also, not it's not only so cool to have Khalid here, but today we're going to be talking about leadership versus LeaderShift. Okay, and make sure that's with a F, not a different letter. Okay, so all right, so what we're going to be talking about is what's the difference, and why is there a difference, and why is that important now during the pandemic and in the future? So Khalid, tell us a little bit about, okay, what the differences are between leadership and leadership.
well, I'm very happy that we are meeting today and to talk about this important, let's say, two concepts. Everyone talks about leadership, Arthur. But when it comes to making the the leadership sustainable and build a strategy for a change and shifting current situation to a desired situation, that's when the concepts of the leadership comes there. And it talks exactly about the decision maker strategy to make the change. And when we say decision makers, we as well as an ordinary people who is not in charge of those multi-millions companies dollars, okay, we also are part of those leadership because we take a critical, let's say, decisions in our life that to change things, to make things in a better way and in a sustainable way. And when it comes to what we have to do to make this shift sustainable is when we measure the impact. One of the most important things that when a leader do his task after improving his inner with the skills needed to take the proper decision, he have to measure what he's doing. And that's what will make him shift from an ordinary leadership person into a leadership person.
Brilliant, brilliant. So basically, leadership still deals with organizational culture and the leader's effect on that organizational culture. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. And when I look at the way that you're doing your organizational cultures, let's say assessments, and also looking into the way that you do your organizational cultures, coaching, assessments, consultations, and measuring the impact, that where we see one part of that concept, which called the leadership, is being implemented in a way that can shift the organization from their current situation into a better situation. So I totally agree with you.
All right. Well, you're also talking about measurement, okay? And of course, I'm a very big fan of measurement because anytime there is an opportunity to measure, there's also an opportunity to gamify things, which means that anything that you do can literally make things more interesting, more fun, and of course, create the motivations behind the concepts of why people essentially are addicted to games.
Now, talking about what you have just said, people and why they wanted to change, it's because they are in a situation or an environment that it's not good for them. They're not happy with it. So if they wanted to change, they need a couple of those tools to be around them. One of them is they need to be motivated. If they're not motivated to be to build that change, it's going to be like any boring process for them. So this is one thing. Second thing, if they don't see a result of their implementation, they might also lose hope in doing something else, because they will say, you know what, I tried, it didn't work. So that's where they have to also ensure that there is a result. And there might have be a result, but this result, if it's a timely result, like they have a problem, they have an issue, they have a challenge, and this challenge have been motivated with a solution, but after it's going to be, let's say, timely solution, which is in 6 months, this answer to their challenge was met, but then it came back. So if it's not a sustainable, I will always emphasize in this world, if it's not a sustainable solution, which is measured from time to time and tuned from time to time, it's going to be just like any other timely solution, which is going to be a boring one for them.
Okay. All right. So now, what do you think about this? Now, you're talking about the measurement of the leader and the leader's results, but okay, based on some of the research that we've done, okay, we find that when you help to measure different levels of the performance, and when we're saying performance, I use that term loosely, of the people themselves, right? So one of the key factors in work gamification is that you don't actually measure the results. You reverse engineer the results into behaviors that will achieve those results, and then you measure the behaviors. Okay. So now, are there specific LeaderShift behaviors that would be common, or is it basically individualized to each person?
Now, when it comes to the behavior part or the skills part, the leadership is building that. But when it comes to the LeaderShift, it's mostly about the implementation, but the implementation in a strategic way. And that's what makes the big difference. So when it comes to individuals, corporates, or private and government sectors, how do you do it? You diagnose the situation, you have the plan of action, you have the implementation of the plan, you have the measuring the impact of the plan action. And then you will measure the measure of the implementation. So there is 4 things that you do. You can't sort an issue if you don't know what is the issue. That's the first thing. Second thing, you will put the scenarios to make this challenge, you will meet your expectation out of this challenge. That's the second thing. Then you will do an implementation plan. When you do the implementation plan, you are going to measure this implementation plan. Did it work or not? If it worked and it's there and it's sustainable, after some time, you need also to measure what you have measured before. Because we have a world which have a fast expectation. And because of that, there is a lots of factors being changed. Example of this, the COVID that we have just faced, COVID-19. The technology was in our hand, Arthur. We did not use it. There was an outside forces called COVID-19, unexpected, force everyone to use the technology to its best. And some beautiful creation happened, innovation, and many new things have happened because of a challenge. It's a global challenge. Now, for us to build a beautiful LeaderShift from where we are to the future, we should go to the future before the future comes to us. And another thing that we have to do is that we need to be ready. We don't need another pandemic to be advanced in our shifting way. Okay? We need to just be in the future before the future knock our door. What is happening in the future? Is it going to be a full tech life? Is it going to be what will be the challenges that is might happen in the future? We might build our solution from now. If it comes into the management, organization, culture, environment, economy, those things, I see the whole world is divided into four channels. If we understand those challenges that can happen to those four challenges, we understand how the things is happening around us. What can be the next economic challenge? What can be the next social challenge? What can be the next environment challenge? What can be the next culture challenge? Anything else is falling under those four. So are we
Well,
ready?
yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I mean, you know, when you're dealing with uh, anything that we're dealing with as far as these types of challenges is still going to go back to the emotional foundations of how people interpret and perceive them.
Uh, Arthur, I believe in one thing. 89% of a human being failures in their life, their decision comes from their emotion.
But okay, scientifically, even when we feel we're making a logical decision, we're still incorporating that emotional element into it. I mean, we as human beings are emotional. It's just that we try to justify through logic. I mean, it's like it's the same thing. You know, your wife goes out, she buys a pair of $2,000 shoes, and she still justifies it. No, no, you see, you don't understand. It's an investment.
Who's going to buy it later on?
Yeah. So it's an investment, and here, and this is why. Boom, 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 boom. It's justified. There's logic behind it. That's the whole point, right? You can justify anything that you feel is important. Okay, and this again is where a lot of times people justify the boss is bad. Oh, this boss doesn't know how to treat me. This boss doesn't have a clear vision. This boss, whatever. People are then justifying their own reasons for basically becoming underperformers. The worst part about it is that when they do justify it, it hurts them because then they have a life that is more difficult. And this is where I think your LeaderShift idea is really brilliant, because what we're doing here is we're setting up a culture where the people themselves can essentially be measured and see their own personal value through the organization that your leader is implementing the strategies.
To complement what you have also said, as a judgmental human being, when I joined a program by the Directive Communication International, they had that color brain training. It's a concept. I should, commend you for this program, as it's a copyright program, comes from under your leadership. This program, with its tools, have made me understand how to not to judge, and how to understand why the other people is communicating the way they are, and because of that, what is the tools or the way or the channels or the communication style that we should also respond to them. I believe in one thing when it comes to LeaderShift. LeaderShift is about having an idea that is needed to be implemented, but you can't implement it unless there is one thing comes from the leadership itself, which is communication. If you cannot communicate what you are implementing, you're not going to move forward. And that's when we wanted to communicate even with people. We should understand one thing. We did not live in their house. We did not go to their school. We don't have the friends that they have. We're not having the challenges that they have faced. So all of those factors and many other factors shape the way that people is thinking. So who we are to judge somebody else of how he respond or how he receive our communication, because we are saying it from our part and he's receiving it from his part of understanding. So if you want to move on from the leadership platform or the level to the leadership, come to this level, but you know exactly that communication is the key to transfer your implementation. And that's where we have to think about how we can build trainers globally in a way that they are not only certified, but they are part of the change. And to be part of
Absolutely.
the change, today we have the Global Training Federation. Not everyone going to be accepted as a trainer, because this is a standardized organization that is accepting people who is able to do a real change. And that's where we see nowadays that the people who is a part of the Global Training Federation is people who build values,
Well, and
implement
this is
values.
also where, I mean, because you are actually certified professional trainer in through the Global Trainers Federation, which again, I mean, that's one of their highest standards. Plus, you've got most of your programs are also endorsed by the Trainers Federation, by the Global Trainers Federation. So, I mean, how, what is it that has helped you to create that standard?
See, when you want to transfer knowledge to people, you're not transferring this knowledge because you want to get paid. You're transferring this knowledge because you want to see a result out of a person who will going to transfer it to many others. This person is the trainer. He have to shift the leadership that he have in a way that it's going to be expanded in his community, in his country, into his, let's say, area. So for him to do this, he have to have a certain skills. Those skills is the skills that can transfer what he have here to somebody else who will receive it and implement it. Not every person who can talk can just say, I can deliver. You know, I met people who in my journey in life, they are professionals in many ways. When it comes to numbers, when it comes to drafting strategy, when it comes to doing all those things, but when it comes for them to teach somebody else what they have, that's where they stop.
Well, again, I mean,
How they can deliver the knowledge.
That in itself is one of the reasons why I think the Global Trainers Federation exists, is basically to separate professionals from people who want to be professionals. I mean, they do have like the memberships for associates and stuff like that, but I mean, ultimately the quality level is where you can go to a client and say, hey, look, I am of this standard. And that is really a key factor in making sure that the client really trusts you, and for that matter, is able to get what they actually are paying for, rather than getting something that is less than expected.
Um, Arthur, in 2011, I started a conference called the International LeaderShift Conference, which in this December, we're doing it for the 6th time. Now, when we started this conference, we wanted it to be a transformational, a change maker concept, and we wanted it to be a real share of knowledge platform. So in our first event, when we did it back 2011, we have divided the speakers into 10 categories to talk about the challenges and the strategy to overcome those challenges in the economic sector, in the oil and gas sector, aviation sectors, sports sectors, non-profit organization, family organization. So we had 10 categories of those how they can shift the leadership in a way that is strategically implemented. Successfully, hundreds and hundreds, if it's not thousands by now, have benefits from this program. And that's why we keep on doing it. And we invite you to be one of those keynote speakers in October. We will be sending you the invitations, the official invitation, and that's where people will gonna listen to the best of the best when it comes to implement a real change all around this globe. And by
Well,
the way,
thank you.
you don't have to worry about it. It's online as well.
Yeah, I want to leave. I know I mean, I live in Bali and everything else, but honestly, I mean, it's I just want to travel again. We've been stuck here. The airport just opened, but it's kind of still very limited. So, but okay. So back to LeaderShift. Okay, one of the key factors that you're talking about. Is okay, so you've got it's really about your internal self, and then it's about taking that and implementing it. So when you are in a leadership attitude or mindset, okay, would you also be developing other leaders in the process?
Definitely, because the things that started with the leadership. Leadership is about leading people for a positive change, for a positive impact, for a positive task or oriented project. When it comes to the leadership, you have to also train leaders to be able to build this transaction. Because if you're not building people for their best of their ability and how they can strategically think, strategically implement, strategically sustain, okay, strategically measure, what's going to happen? You will end up with a few people who understand the game of leadership, and then everyone, end of the day, will move on to the old school of leadership. Okay, old school of leadership, which the world is moving so fast, and the human being expectation is moving fast with it. So those people who is not in the leadership yet, how will they implement the change? So yes, you have to build leaders who understand the leadership concept.
And this is where most people fail, okay? Because they figure that, oh, the secretary doesn't need to be a leader. The cleaner or the tea lady don't need to be cleaners. And that attitude basically keeps people from being their best. And, in some of the organizational culture change initiatives that we've implemented, I mean, some of the key influencers, the people that actually have influence in the organization, but they're informal leaders per se. Okay, are people like the tea lady or the janitor or sometimes a secretary or a PA, and people just often overlook these people as leaders, and therefore those people who have so much potential to really support the organization and the organizational culture are passed by, and they're wasting the resources that they have.
That's when the organization doesn't have a successful leadership to take over. When somebody goes into retirement, when somebody have issues as a health issues, or somebody leave the job, that's where there is a big gap, a big issue to fill those positions. You know, let's take an example of family offices or family businesses. Family businesses is about bringing people from the family also to take positions within the organization. That's a case. If those leaders who's coming into this company have not trained in another company outside the family business company, if they don't have the skills of how to sustain this beautiful growth which is started from their grandfathers, okay, they will just move on to something that they will think the money is ready for me. I just have to give orders. I just have to, this is owned by me and I don't have to care about the other people. They're working for me. It's my family business. If it's go on to this, that's why you will see that around the globe, family businesses, when it's reached to the third, fourth, maybe maximum fifth, in some, not all the cases, but in some, family businesses collapse.
Yeah, and well, and the thing is that a lot of organizations are completely unaware of the culture that they have, and that culture ultimately is what determines the success. I mean, not just financial success, but the long-term success of that organization. I mean, some organizations are sick, and even though they may be profitable now, they're on the way to, well, basically being not profitable anymore because they have cultures that are toxic. And this is where, again, you were mentioning about measurement, where the ocean tool is used to benchmark an organization. When you have that measurement of understanding, here's where the culture is. And based on our experience, more than 60% of organizations, okay, or let me rephrase that, more than 60% of organizational leaders feel that their organization's culture is actually better than it is, and most of them end up being in like the literally the worst, lowest level of culture evolution. And this is where and then they get surprised. Oh my gosh, I didn't know. But see, I mean, and that's because they haven't really taken a look at the bigger perspective. And this is where, again, LeaderShift also helps. You need to be able to look at the bigger picture of the organization rather than be a manager for your company. Would you agree?
I totally agree with that. And organizations and people who's in charge of those organizations have to also know that the organizational culture is not a one-time practice that they have to do, because you have to build this beautiful consultation methods when it comes to the organizational culture with its implementation. But after some time, go ahead, measure it, because there is lots of things that are going to affect this organizational culture. It's not a one thing for lifetime.
Well, you know what? I mean, this, one of the strategies that we use in developing companies is so right now we have our organizational culture certification, right? So it's internationally accredited and everything else. So we've got 91 certified organizational culture consultants. Okay. And a lot of them, what they do is they'll go in and they'll do a culture audit for like super cheap. And just because the culture audit shows the reality of where that company is, a lot of those companies like, oh my gosh, let's do something about it, because their priorities change. It's like, you go to the hospital because your elbow hurts, and then they say, oh, sorry, you have cancer. Suddenly you're willing to spend more time and money to fix it. And this again is where helping the CEOs and these family business owners to know where they really are is where an opportunity for them to really go and make that change happens. Because sometimes LeaderShift is like, I'll get around to it later. But once they see how sick their organization can be or could be potentially, they see that LeaderShift is important.
That's why the concept of the leadership has been implemented a lot during the pandemic, because people have unexpected situations. And let's example organization which is in general trade. They didn't know that their cargo services will be affected. They didn't know that their shipments will be delayed or maybe canceled. They didn't know that there won't be any financial resources and they have to use their reserve. All of those things made the organization during the year 2000 and in the beginning of 2021 as well, is to think How can I shift my situation? How do I have to think in a different way? Lots of one of the biggest mistake, I call it the mother of all the mistakes when it comes to the organizational solution that happened in the pandemic, is to reduce manpower. Those people within your organization, they know exactly everything inside out. They know how your machine works. They might give you a better suggestions how to reduce the cost. But all what you have done is to reduce them, which they are the expert in your organization. You had a beautiful strategic thinkers having a key positions. Instead of you sit in a round table with them and says, think with me, this is our beautiful company, how we can sustain our income, how can we sustain our paychecks, how can we sustain our uh, covering the minimum, and just even if we have a little in this pandemic as a profit, that will be great. So I call it the biggest mistake is to not to utilize the experts around you and take them as an excuse to reduce your expenses. So when it comes to how to build a shift, start building the shift within your organization by building a loyalty between you and everybody else. Because those people, if they are loyal to you, even in pandemic, they might even say, you know what, we understand what's happening. We've been here with you for years. We know that the company cannot pay us on time, but we want to sustain our location. We want to sustain our position. We want to try to help this company who was helping us by paying our check bill for almost 5, 6, 10, 20. There is organizations that we know that 30 years in business. And all what they did during the pandemic, they said, you know what? This is the time for us to reduce manpower.
Well, again, and the thing is that sometimes the leaders often accidentally create cultures that create underperformers. And then what happens is they say, oh, we got to get rid of these underperformers because they're not performing, when in reality, it was because of the culture that was created in the first place that they're like that. Okay? People do not go into a business or into a job saying, oh, right, now I got the job, I can relax, man. Okay, they're excited. You remember when you first got your jobs, regardless of what job it was, you were excited. It's like, wow, you've got all this passion, excitement. You can see what's going to happen like a year down the road. You're very excited for at least 2 weeks before the organizational culture can start getting to you. And that's where, again, I mean, I think that your leadership is very essential. And we're running out of time, Khalid. If when people want to get a hold of you, where do they go?
Or they can find us in our website, khalidalgood.com, or they can find it also at algood.com. And,
okay, so KhalidAlkaoud.com, spelled exactly the same way that it is here on the on
KHALIDALQOUD.com.
There you go. All right. And earlier I just want to share. You were talking about like the colored brain. If anybody wants to understand a little bit more about colored brain and where it can be used, there's a TED Talk that you can look for. Just look Arthur Karmazi TED, and then you'll see one about colored brain, everything else, and it'll really give you some insights on how colored brain can be used and where it can be helpful in your organization or your training practice. So, Khalid, any last words for us?
Well, I want to tell everyone to stay tuned. Myself and my good friend Arthur, we might have a speaking roadshow in the Middle East. So we are planning that. So wait for the announcements. It might be in many places: Bahrain, Saudi, Kuwait, Dubai. So get tuned for this day. We will have a roadshow of a day in each country. Doesn't mean that we're going to drive on the road.
We get a big bus like the rock stars, and we get lots of, uh, fans and stuff
Yeah.
following us in our big bus. How's that?
Exactly. And my last word to everyone, the change that you're looking for is in your hand. You just have to implement it. Don't underestimate the power that you have within. You're a great leader, born as a leader, and you can sustain your life as a leader. Do not be afraid of what is happening around you. Those are challenges for you to learn from. As much as they're getting more tough in your life, as much as you're learning more and you become more stronger. So, in the end, your life is your choice. Life is right, so live it right. Arthur.
Awesome. Awesome. That's brilliant. Well, Khalid, thank you so much for joining me. It was fun today. And, I'm sure it's not going to be the last time, because this is brilliant. And your concept is also brilliant and very practical. So, we gotta come back and look at some of the strategies that will go with it. So thank you very much. And we'll see you in the next Nights of Transformation. Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you, Arthur.
All
Hope to
right.
see you
See you
soon,
guys
my
later. Oh,
friend.
hey, wait. We should probably mention some of the things that you were talking about, right? We were talking about the GTF. Go to trainersfederation.org. If you're interested in the
Directive communication as well.
directive communication, coloredbrain.com, okay, for the website on the Colored Brain, directivecommunication.net or .com, either one, for the overall perspective of our 600 plus licensed directive communication psychology trainers across 28 countries. And also, of course, if you're interested in culture measurement, cultureevolution.com. All right. And somebody's probably typing those into the chat right now, I'm guessing. Okay. And if not, that was the cue. Okay. So we can add those in. And everyone, thank you very much for showing up. And we'll see you in the next show.
Take care, everyone. Have a nice day.